Good morning, sports fans. You're on the PR Man and the Coach Talking BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL communications executive and former NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball sports reporter who's reported on college basketball, the NBA. I'm thrilled today to be talking about the NBA basketball season that just kicked off on Tuesday. And I got to talk to you about, I'm more excited about my co-host. My co-host on today's podcast is one of the most accomplished people in all of sports. He attended and graduated from Michigan State University. And in 1985, the Boston Celtics selected him selected him in the first round, 20th pick overall. Our co-host played 7 NBA seasons for the Boston Celtics, Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Supersonics, Chicago Bulls, Orlando Magic, and he picked up a championship ring on the 1986 Boston Celtics team. He then embarked upon a coaching career, spent the 2007-2008 season with the Charlotte Hornets, has coached all over the world, coached here in the States. He needs no further introduction. Sam Vincent is our co-host today. Sam, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic, PR man. It's an absolute pleasure to join you on the podcast. I've been thinking about it all week since you first mentioned it, and it's exciting. A chance to connect and cover some of the incredible things that's happening in the NBA. Past seasons, this season, it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for the opportunity to join you.
Please, thank you. Look, I owe you all the thank you for coming on with us to talk about the NBA. I just got to tell you, there's 3 parts of the NBA season that are my favorites. The beginning opening night, when the champion from the previous season gets those big, gigantic, gaudy rings. The NBA All-Star Weekend has kind of been an exciting time for me, and then the NBA Finals. But just to sort of kind of recap, the team that got those gaudy rings on Tuesday night is a team that I'm very, very impressed with. They get the rings and they showed the video and they put the banners there. The owner's there, Commissioner Silver's there. I mean, it was a really, really big night. But I want you to sort of kind of help me put this in a little bit of a historical perspective, from the perspective of what the Warriors have done, winning 4 NBA titles in 8 seasons. I mean, specifically, I want to talk about the guy who makes them go, and that their point guard, Steph Curry. Tell me a little bit about where you think he is as far as, in that rare era of great NBA players, based on the fact that he's been able to power that team to 4 championships in 8 seasons, Sam.
Well, I'll tell you what, before I even go into that, Reggie, I've got to talk about what your comment was about the incredible evening that takes place on that ring banner evening. First of all, we obviously know that you're celebrating the finals of the year before. Right. And the incredible achievements that one NBA team has now possessed. So that, like you mentioned, is just a fantastic evening because all of the NBA is watching, all of the players, all of the media, all of the fans. It's that one night that you recap the year before and then give this, just like you said, incredible gaudy ring. And, I think back to my Celtics days when we won the championship. It was a beautiful ring. It is a beautiful ring, but it's nowhere near what these guys are getting today. Now they've got 100 diamonds. It's full of gold. The mascot is ruby, different kind of rubies. So it's something that I'm excited to be a part of that whole tradition, and to have had a chance to win a championship with the Celtics. And I watched it. I watched it from the beginning to the end. Yeah. And you talk about a franchise, this Golden State Warriors, and what they've done over the last 10 years, winning these 4 championships. It's just amazing. They have become one of the top franchises in the NBA. And when you talk about, like you said, who's motoring that, who's making that happen, it's Steph Curry. This is a guy, he's not a 6'8" shooter. He's not your Michael Jordan or your Kobe or your LeBron frame guys. Here, this guy is about 6'2", maybe 6'3", about 190 pounds, maybe. But what he brings, Reggie, is so incredible and so unique. He is the best shooter in the history of the NBA, and we've had some great ones. But I can tell you, the distance that this guy shoots the ball from, nobody thought about shooting from that far distance. And the accuracy. And when you go back to that Celtics championship, that finals, and you think about some of the historic shots that he made to put these guys where they are as the champions of the NBA, it's amazing. I read somewhere today that now they're talking about him as one of the top 10 best players of all time. And he deserves it. And I'm excited to see what he does in this season.
So let me make sure I got this right. Would you put him in that rare air where you start talking about, Michael, Kobe, the guys, Magic, that space? Do you think is he emerging, or maybe when he's done playing, will he be talked about in that particular space?
I really think he will. And I'll tell you why. Number one, he's a prolific scorer.
Right.
This is a guy that can come out and he can give you 30, he can give you 40, and he's doing it way beyond the three-point line. Number two, he's a solid defender.
Right.
You may not see it because he's not necessarily a great on-the-ball defender, but he understands the gaps and the spaces, and he's always in great help defense position. So his man is never really beaten him too often. And then he's just a great heady player. He's a great teammate. He's always in the right spots. He makes the right plays. And most importantly, his team wins. So you can look at a lot of exceptional great players over the history of the league, but how many of those guys can rack up, 3, 4 NBA championships? And now Steph's on 4 with a strong chance to get number 5 this year. So definitely, I see him there. I see him in the top 10.
It's unbelievable. You're on the podcast. We're talking ball on BallFather podcast presented by Sports Kitty with my co-host Sam Vincent. Sam, let's get into it. The season's kind of in its early stages, day 2. The other part of the season that's really exciting is that people are talking about who the emerging teams are, the new places and new faces, and there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of off-season movement in the NBA this past season. I keep hearing about the New Jersey Nets. I keep hearing about the Milwaukee Bucks. Tell me what you think, and I know it's early. We're only in the first week, but who do you like? Who do you see emerging, provided everybody stays healthy? Who do you see emerging and playing in the finals this season?
Well, I'll tell you what, Reggie. Coming into that opening night, we had 4 good teams playing. Everybody wanted to see what the Los Angeles Lakers were going to be able to do against the Golden State Warriors. And then you had the Boston Celtics playing against the Philadelphia 76ers. So right off the bat, we started with 4 good teams. And I'll tell you what, I was a little disappointed in the Lakers and what I saw early. The chemistry that I see from the new addition, Patrick Beverley and Russell Westbrook, doesn't look good.
It's bad. Call it what it is. It's bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, man. It really doesn't. I don't know if they're fighting over who's going to handle the ball or who's going to be in leadership, but I wasn't impressed. And LeBron is LeBron, superstar, amazing. But I tell you, I'm starting to see a little age. He's not that young running. Still a great player, Reggie, but he's changing a little bit. Anthony Davis was back and in the lineup and did some things, but this team doesn't have the energy. They don't show the passion. I think Patrick Beverley will make them better on defense, but I don't know if he's going to make them good enough to get to that top level. Golden State really kind of walked right through that game, won by 14, 15 points, and they looked like the champion. Then in the East, I really thought the Philadelphia 76ers, was going to win that game. Boston's been having their problems. Obviously, the coach goes out with some issues off the court. Wasn't really sure how Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown would handle that. But the new young coach, who they say doesn't have a lot of experience, pulled them together, and they did a great job. So I kind of understand what I'm going to get from those 4. But when you look around the league, and you talk about who's up and coming, which is what your question was, Brooklyn Nets, who I thought with Ben Simmons would come out and play much better, they kind of fell off and didn't look so good. Dallas Mavericks, who I think, Once they get it going, they could possibly be there. Ja Morant and Memphis really came out and played tough. So this is going to be a real interesting year. I think we're going to have to get probably 10 to 15 games in before we can really identify the team that's going to emerge to the top.
Let me go back to something you mentioned, because I'm all about body language and energy. I'm about energy. I mean, there's a thing I sent one of my sons this morning about 10 things you can do that require no talent: showing up on time, being coachable, being able to take criticism, being early, being on time. And the other one of them was body language. But then there was a clip earlier. It was during the preseason where Patrick Beverley's trying to gather everybody into the huddle to say something during a preseason game, and everybody gets in the huddle. LeBron's in the huddle, AD's in the huddle, whoever the other guy was on the court, he's in the huddle. And Russ, what? It was an awful look from an ocular perspective, which to me sort of sent the signal this guy hadn't bought in yet, or sort of something that you said earlier. Am I gonna lead? Are you gonna lead? I mean, did you see the clip I'm talking about? I mean, it just looked bad.
Hey Reggie, I saw that clip, and you're spot on with that analysis of the situation. I think chemistry for the Lakers over the last few years has been an issue.
Yeah.
And Patrick Beverley was brought in to be an exceptional defensive player, maybe add a little leadership and be a solid point guard. But in order for that to happen, everybody's got to buy in. Right. And for me personally, Patrick Beverley has always really kind of been a marginal player. I don't know if he's the kind of talent that can come and lead these Los Angeles Lakers with all these superstar guys. But what I did identify was whether or not LeBron and Anthony Davis are buying in, Russell Westbrook is not buying in. So those two guys, they need to go out and have a little coffee, maybe grab dinner and say, hey, listen, we may not really respect each other's games, but on the court, we got to present something very specific to keep this team together. They got to figure out how to work it out.
I agree. I completely agree. Like I said, I didn't like it. And my sons, who are big, huge NBA fans, they both say, Dad, you're always so hard on Westbrook. I just, his over his career, in my opinion, his body language hasn't been good. He's played with Kevin Durant. He's played with James Harden, and it's always kind of the same. It's kind of, he sort of has this sort of kind of me. It's all about me, and I don't think that bodes well as the season goes on. Let's change gears here. You mentioned the Brooklyn Nets and what they've done. They've got KD, they got Kyrie, and you mentioned Ben Simmons, who kind of was a little bit of a question mark last year. It was a huge question mark, but now he's there. He's with those two guys. Do you think this team, if they can kind of, if the coach can get them going and they kind of figure things out, you think they can make a good, successful run and possibly get to the finals and be the beast of the East?
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve Nash has his work cut out. And when I say that, Kyrie Irving, as great as he is as a talent, he's been a little enigmatic. He's an interesting kind of guy.
Great word.
Exactly. And Kevin Durant, who is one of our top players in the NBA, he was played out of position in the last finals. You're trying to play a 7-foot guy on the top of the key, running pick and rolls, and all it was turnovers. So they've got to really figure out exactly how they're going to maximize the strength of Kevin Durant. Not trying to make him a ball handler. He's got to come off down screens where he can just catch and shoot. And then the key to this team is Ben Simmons. And what I saw in that opening night against New Orleans was not very impressive. Okay, we understand the kid is not really offensive minded. But nobody has told Ben Simmons not to shoot the ball. I don't think anybody's even said if you miss shots, we're going to be upset with you. So why the kid is only taking 4 shots in the game, as fast as he is and as talented as he is, he's got to find a way to be a better offensive producer for the Brooklyn Nets to be successful, or else it's not going to happen. So what I saw in that first game, Reggie, I think I told you, I had these guys picked to be, maybe the top of the Eastern Conference, maybe even possibly they could get to the finals. They've got 3 superstars and a solid surrounding cast. But if Ben Simmons doesn't pull it together and really lead this team and fouls out like he did in that first game with 6 fouls, this team is going to struggle.
I'm thinking, like I said, I've spent the majority of my career in the NFL, and I understand. But teamwork, and you got to have teamwork, you got to have leadership, and you got to have guys who can bring guys together and guys who can pull guys to the side and get them together. Now, like you mentioned, KD was playing out of position. So you're right, that was a complete disaster. It was a mess. Let's say they figure that out. And Steve Nash is as good a coach as there is in basketball. He's a tremendous coach, great player, tremendous coach, former MVP, league MVP. Let's say he's going to figure it out. Kyrie with the whole vaccination status, and maybe I'll play, maybe I won't. I'm troubled. I'm troubled that if they're going to be able to get Ben Simmons to buy in, because he didn't look comfortable the other night, and obviously he missed the whole season. There was some whispers about the mental stability, and was he committed to the game. If they can get all 3 of those guys going, I think the sky's the limit for those guys.
I agree with you, Reggie. I do. I think if they can get all 3 of those guys going, then they have as potent of a threesome as any other team in the league. But I'm going to tell you, the one area where I differ with you, Steve Nash, yes, Hall of Famer, player, one of the best point guards. He can push the ball on the break. He can find the open man. The jury is still out on whether or not he's a great coach. I'm not sure of that. Not yet. And I'm fair, but I'm honest. And why do I say that? I say that because there's a rumor that was kind of going around that Steve Nash would have a practice, and after the practice, Kyrie would conduct the practice. Now, if you're the coach of the Brooklyn Nets,
that's what we doing now?
That's not something can happen. So first of all, what that does is it starts to undermine your coaching style, philosophies, and the players' ability to believe in you. Whether or not it was happening exactly like I hear, I don't know. But I hear from some reliable sources that there was some things going on. Number two, Kevin Durant should never be handling the ball at the top of the key. So to me, that was a real technical error. He's a 7-foot shooter. I can post him up in the middle, kind of like they used to do with Dirk Nowitzki and Larry Bird. Post him up in the middle, run a pick and roll, and wait for the switch. But when you got Kevin Durant coming off trying to be a playmaker, he's not Magic Johnson. He can't make those kind of plays. And to me, that's Steve Nash's responsibility. So I respect him as a player 100%, but I'm still watching him pretty closely as a coach.
I like that. Fantastic analysis there, Coach. I appreciate that. Let's switch gears here. Let's stay in the East and then switch gears. Talk a little bit about the franchise that drafted you in 1985 and some of the fallout that took place. Talk to us a little bit, Coach, about Ime Udoka. I mean, when that first happened, I was traveling and I read it, and the first thing I thought of, we're all grown people. We're all grown men. We've all worked in professional sports. You've coached at the highest level. You've played at the highest level. People have relationships with people. People have consenting relationships with people. Talk to me a little bit about that and what you know about it. And did the Celtics overreact? Did they overreact, or just talk to me a little bit about what you know about Coach Udoka and where you think this whole thing ends up and where it goes.
Well, I tell you what, Reggie, this is a very sensitive topic for me, and nobody was more shocked at the news than I was. And I say that because I've had several opportunities to work with Ime Udoka as a player. I coached Ime Udoka twice in the NBA D-League before it became the G-League. When the D-League first started and we had the 8 teams playing in the Southeast, I was the head coach of the Mobile Revelers. I was the head coach of the Fort Flyers. And I had Ime Udoka on 2 different rosters. And then I was also the head coach of the Nigerian national team. So Ime played for me. He was my starting point guard with the Nigerian national team the year that we went to Tokyo and played in the World Championship. So I know Ime as a person, I know him as a player, and I know him as a coach. I know he's done an outstanding job working with some of the NBA's top NBA coaches. So I know the quality of the guy, and he's a high quality guy. When I heard the news, I was very disappointed. And the first person I called, Reggie, was his sister, Mfong Udoka, who was a Hall of Famer at DePaul. Her uniforms hanging up in the rafters, and she also played for me as a player on my Nigerian national team. So I called Mfong and I said, Mfong, tell me what exactly is going on. So Mfong started to give me a little bit more of the details of how the relationship started, what was going on in the relationship. And a lot of what was said in the media was not actually what happened. Now, I'm not going to.
What a shock!
Exactly. I'm not, Reggie, going to try to defend what happened. I'm only going to say that after speaking to Mfong, I was able to learn a little bit more of what really went down versus some of the stories that came out in the news. But what through all of that I realized was Ime put himself in a tough position. Number one, this was a young lady that was working on the staff, and it's just not something that you do in terms of work relations, having relationships with people on your staff, because you never know what direction they're going to go. So it was bad judgment. It was a bad decision. Sometimes, Reggie, in these positions, when you're a head coach, I can tell you from experience, you got a lot of different pressures coming at you. You've got your fans, you've got your administration, you've got your ownership, and you're dealing with the players. So there can be a situation where you can be vulnerable and you can make a bad decision. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for it. What was done was wrong. But I believe the Celtics organization could have probably handled this internally. Maybe still there had to be some repercussions for the poor decisions that he made. But I didn't think it had to get blown out into the media the way it did. Now Ime's got to deal with the fact that he made a bad decision and the suspension is out there. What I hope is Ime can rebound from this. He can learn from his mistake. Others who may be in organizations who may have relationships with people, they also can learn that that's a real bad boo-boo. Don't do it. And hopefully he can get back and get on with his career and be what I think is going to be one of the top coaches in the league.
I mean, the guy was amazing last year, especially down the stretch with the Celtics. I mean, he made some great decisions. The Celtics all bought in. He had those guys playing. I mean, they were playing at a super high level. And they were like one or a couple of buckets and a couple of different calls from the officials of winning the whole thing. But they were playing great.
They were playing great, Reggie, and what everybody has to understand is you got to understand the backstory. You got to understand what was happening with the Celtics before Ime Udoka came. That year before, Brad Stevens was the head coach, and that year they were in turmoil. They were having inner team problems. They were upset with the coach. They were on the verge of a little bit of a complete meltdown. Yeah. And then Ime comes in and he pulls those guys back together. He reestablishes the leadership on the team. He gets them playing great basketball, and they reach the finals. So this is a big letdown. The fact that he, had this problem and he's gone out. Hopefully the players can stay focused, which I thought they did against Philadelphia. They came out, they got a big win. Hopefully for the organization. I'm still green and white, man. I'm a Celtic through and through. It's a great organization, and I love it.
I know you ain't gonna talk bad about your Celtics. I know that.
I can't do it.
I know it. Listen, let's talk about a couple of other things. I don't want to get too into the whole Draymond Green thing that took place with the Warriors during practice. But that's not a good look. I don't believe in fighting ever. I don't think it's good. I don't think you solve anything bad. I think it sends a really, really bad message to what's going on within that organization. As great as they are, and we led the podcast off talking about how good they are. Let me ask you this: do you think long term Draymond Green stays with the Warriors, stays in Golden State?
I tell you what, Reggie, I've got some real mixed emotions about how this situation was handled, what the outcome was. Initially, I'm green and white with Michigan State Spartans also. I'm Spartan Nation. So when I saw what happened, my initial response was, "Come on, Draymond. That's a low blow. It's a teammate. It's a little bit of a sucker punch. That just shouldn't happen in our team environment." Now, over time, as you watch the video and you see that they had some kind of altercation, I think Jordan Poole said something that inflamed him, and then Draymond walked up on him, and then he pushed him off. Okay? Draymond's actions from there, I felt, should have been to go to Jordan Poole, say whatever his beef was, and then try to resolve it maybe after the practice. Because what we know, Reggie, because we've been around sports, is sometimes your testosterone, sometimes the energy, sometimes the passion, you make mistakes. Sure. So I think in the moment, Draymond being the tough, physical, enforcer kind of guy, led him to make a mistake. And he punched Jordan Poole, which everybody saw. But the aftermath of the decision-making process on what the Warriors did, to me, I feel was outstanding. And I believe that. And I'll tell you why. I think instead of allowing that situation to become a bigger distraction by suspending Draymond, now you affect the team. And the one thing that you always got to be thinking about is the team. It's not about any of the individuals. It's about how the team is going to be affected. The team would have had a very negative response to Draymond being suspended. They wouldn't have played as well. Their leader would have been gone. And that would have negatively started off this season. So I think the management said, listen, in order to protect the team, we need to keep Draymond in. We need to make sure that we send the message that we're going to fine him, which they did. It's going to cost him for his bad action, but we're not going to take that out on the team. I think that was a smart move. I think Draymond and Jordan Poole, I think they slapped five a couple times in the game, so they obviously resolved it. And I think what the management is saying, at the end of this year, we're going to deal with Draymond, but we're not going to let that affect the beginning of our season and what we're trying to do as far as winning another championship this season. Long term, does Draymond stay? I would say no. But most important, let's get off to a good year. Let's get a good start. Let's show a positive front. And you know what? Already it's out of the media. If Draymond had been suspended, nobody's talking about it.
Nobody's talking about it.
If Draymond had been suspended, it would be the talk of the Warriors. When is Draymond coming back? Did they lose the game? Can they still win a championship? They did the right thing by bringing them back, letting them resolve it, and playing basketball. And I love seeing it. They're a great basketball team.
They are a great team. We're on the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Sam, let's talk a little bit about Doc Rivers in the Philadelphia 76ers. Doc's always been one of those guys. He's one of my favorite guys. Good person. He's got some ties to the Central Florida area. Outstanding player. Coached the Celtics for a long to a championship. He's now coaching a really, really talented roster that's kind of led by Joel Embiid and the player that he is. Can they finally break through and make some noise and get to the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe become the East's representative in the NBA Finals?
I'll tell you what, Reggie, I almost think Doc has got to be able to accomplish that. And you're right, Doc's a great guy, real solid coach. And I'm sure Doc Rivers will always have a head coaching job in the NBA because when he's released, somebody's going to pick him up. But you know, I got to go back to the Los Angeles Clippers with an incredible team, and up in that series, and only having to win one game and losing 3 in a row. I love Doc Rivers. I think he's a great coach. But in this world of sports, you got to get it done.
It's results-driven business.
Absolutely. And if you don't get it done, well, then it's a knock on you for not getting it done. And in that series with the Clippers, I felt they had to get it done. They had to win that game and go ahead and win a championship, but it just never happened. So with this Philadelphia 76ers team, he's got probably the best center in the league with Joel Embiid. He's surrounded with a solid cast of players with Tobias and a few other guys that can really play. This is a year where Doc has got to get it done, or else they may start losing some confidence in Doc Rivers in Philadelphia.
Yeah. It's interesting. He's you're right. The supporting cast is there. The fan base is there. I mean, Philadelphia's a tougher place to play there is in the NBA. He's like you said, it might be time to put. It's time to put up or shut up. You gotta go get it done this year. This is a big year.
You gotta make it happen. You
gotta make it happen.
Or you gotta move on.
You move on. Okay, we're gonna finish up here on the PR Man and the Coach talking ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Let's talk a little bit about who, in your opinion, right now in today's NBA. I know we're just a couple of days into the 2022-23 season, but in your opinion, who are 2 of the most exciting young players playing in the game today? Guys who we should be looking at. I personally, my own opinion, I'm a Devin Booker guy, and I'm even more of a Devin Booker guy after this morning. After seeing him, he rolled up yesterday to the game in a pink Cadillac convertible. I'm a Cadillac guy. Okay? I'm a Cadillac. Anybody who knows me, if anybody ever tells you, well, I saw Reg driving it out. Reg's car is the Cadillac. That's my car. He showed up to the arena. He had the shades on, had the backwards cap, and he got out of a pink convertible like 1955 Caddy. He was unbelievable. So he's my pick. Who's your favorite young player playing in the game right now?
Well, Reggie, what you're almost saying is Devin Booker gets in by default, not necessarily because of his game, but because he's got a cool pink Cadillac. And I don't know if he's from Detroit, Michigan. Matter of fact, I know he's not from Detroit, Michigan, where the pink Cadillacs originated. I think he's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is about a couple hours to the left. But anyway, I like Devin Booker. He's an exciting guy. He's a great scorer. So that gets him on the list as well. But when you talk about who's my favorite, young, exciting player, I'm gonna go with Ja Morant. And I go with Ja Morant because, man, his elevation, the moves that he makes above the rim, his defensive plays above the rim, and I tell you what, his creativity in his mind for some of the things that he does, which you got to be thinking all the time because the action is really, really fast in the NBA. So he can be attacking a guy to the right, the guy can cut it off, he'll 360 spin back and shoot it up with his left hand on the opposite side of the basket. That is real creativity. So the young guy, to me, that is the most flashy, exciting to watch is playing with the Memphis Grizzlies, and that's Ja Morant.
Yeah, you got a good point. He is special with the hops and how he's able to elevate and make those guys around him better. I mean, I guess I'll have to put my guy Devin behind him because he's not quite the athlete that the Ja. So we'll have to go with you. Makes you want to get back into coaching to be able to coach a guy like that, doesn't it?
Oh my God, these guys are incredible. I was watching the top 10 NBA highlights and some of the dunks and some of these moves from some of these kids. It's going to be an exciting NBA season. It really is. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be chasing a title, but there's some real exciting young players that are bringing some incredible speed, athleticism, and they're going to make it really fun to watch. So I can't wait to stay tuned to all the NBA games this year.
Our guy here in Orlando had a good night last night. They didn't win. The number one pick overall, Banchero, he had a great game last night. He's had a really good game.
He played fantastic, and I tell you what, I didn't realize he was such an athlete. I knew he had size, but on the one play that he went up in the air and he drew the foul and he made the dunk, that showed me something. Orlando really made a solid pick with Banchero, and I tell you what, now they just have to put the right pieces around him, and they're going in the right direction.
Well, listen, Coach, thank you so very much for joining us. We're going to have to get on the phone later today and talk about, trying to get on your calendar to do this again, because it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's been insightful. I've learned a lot. And the energy that you bring to the podcast is fantastic. We'll have to check your calendar and see when you can kind of do this again. I'm hoping we can do something next week and kind of recap this week's action and this weekend's action and talk a little bit more ball.
Reggie, I love the NBA, and it was fun to do it. Really great working with you. So hopefully we can find time to do more.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for today's show. We appreciate your help all showing up. Stay well, stay safe, stay cool. We'll get back to you next week. Take care, and we're out.